Welcome to this tutorial setting up and using Explority Enhanced Interaction Component in Unreal Engine 5.4. By the end of this video, you will know how to install the package and set up the interaction system for your actors. I'll start with a fresh version of the third-person template, and basically I have my Explority component installed. Alright, let's get started on setting up our interactions. The goal here is to create an interactable door and make each doorknob its own interactive point, so we can lock, unlock, and open the door from each side of the door. In the project, I'll create a folder named tutorial, and in it I'm going to create my door. It's going to be base actor, and I'm going to create here the meshes that we're going to use. I'm happy with this look. We need to add 2 scene components to our doors blueprints, one for each knob basically. And we're going to reset the translation and scale. Sorry. I'm going to do that for the second knob as well. So these two. As scene components are added, we'll give each one a unique tag. Let's just call them front knob and back knob. Going to change their name as well. These tags will come in and become useful later when we add our interaction component. Now let's add 2 arrows underneath these scene components. That will help us with the direction. I'm going to actually reset the translation and scale for this knob. Now I'm going to make sure that the knob looks in the direction outwards. So I'm going to rotate the scene component so that the arrow points outwards. I'm going to make sure that it is actually correct, so it's 180. This way the arrows are pointing outwards. Right. Now, that's great. Let's add the interaction components by heading over to the Components tab and adding BP interaction component. Once they're added, we're going to duplicate that, one for each side. We're going to rename them. One is front interaction, and the other is back interaction. Now let's set up our components by first visiting the detail panel and decide for each component. First of all, make sure the active box is checked. If this is not activated, we're going to have to activate the components manually. This active radius is the distance where the player can actually interact with the interaction component. the UI location is basically the tag that exists inside your blueprint, and it is the tag that is of the scene component that is going to be the place for the interaction itself. Let's make sure these values are okay for us, and then we're going to enter the UI location tag. For the interaction, front interaction is going to be front knob, and this is the interaction words basically that shows in the interaction. It's going to be open, and here is going to be back knob. It's going to be open door as well. Make sure this is capital as well. Right. Okay. I'm going to select both, and we're going to enable can see interaction, which is basically going to check if the player is directly in front of the interaction, if there is nothing in between the player and the interaction. Basically, if there is a wall, the interaction won't show. And use look at to make sure that the player is looking directly at this, is not looking to another thing. So with that in place, let's tackle the input settings that we have in the input section. First, I'm gonna keep the old input system turned on, because this means that we'll use the legacy input system that is built inside of Unreal instead of the enhanced input system that is currently available starting from version 5.0. Now I'm gonna set the console type to dynamic detection, because I can use my keyboard and my gamepad simultaneously, so this is perfect. I'm gonna set my keys to F for interact, and my gamepad key to left face button, which is basically X on gamepad. Now in key binding, I'm gonna keep the key selection, which means that I'm gonna use these keys. If I select binding name, I'm gonna actually have to use this name here, which has to be the same as the one in our project settings. We're gonna try that later in the video. Now the interaction method is going to be tab here, and the last thing is actually I'm gonna keep the reactivate unchecked for now, and as well as the duration. I'm not gonna cover that right now. Now I'm gonna actually create the blueprint for the door. I'm gonna select these, I'm gonna delete them. I'm gonna create a timeline, front open. I'm gonna double click that. I'm gonna create a track of float. And I'm gonna add one float from 0, 1 point, right click, add another. I'm gonna make it at 2 seconds only. I'm gonna make the value 1. The animation length is gonna be 2, and that's it. Now, here's a trick that if you want to make doors, I'm gonna create another scene component here. I'm gonna call it hinge. I hope that's a component I can find. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna name it hinge. I'm gonna select everything. I'm gonna go first to hinge. I'm gonna place it on the place of the door itself. You can of course be more practical and put it like to the side so that the door rotates around this point. Now I'm gonna select everything in the door. I'm gonna actually make it a child of that hinge. That way if the door rotates this way or that way, it is opening and closing. I'm going to drag that hinge here. I'm going to actually set rotation, world rotation at this point, and I only care about the z-axis, so I'm going to multiply that by 90. I'm gonna connect that to the yaw. Right. And now it's time to actually activate our interaction. So with the front door interaction, I'm gonna actually use interaction completed, which is going to mean that the interaction has been functional. So I'm going to do that from the start. Basically, that means that the interaction right now is done. And this will actually make the hinge rotate till 90 degrees in 2 seconds. And after it's done, we can actually go to reverse that. So to reverse that, I'm going to actually go do a custom and basically call it closed door. I'm going to actually close door. I'm just going to rename that event front. I'm going to take that, I'm going to duplicate that here, close door end. I'm going to give that a negative 90 effect. I'm going to call it here, close door end. I need a boolean here. I'm going to name that boolean closed. This means it's opened the first time. Right, it's going to be false normally. And now it's closed on front. We're going to duplicate that. And then we're going to come up here and make closed door end as well. I'm going to make that true as well. So basically, this is closed door end as well. Now we need only the back interaction. I'm going to use completed. And this way, when the door opens, it's going to mark it as it needs to be closed. And then once it closes, it is going to mark this as false. So when the sequence, the timeline ends again, it's not going to actually call the end of the door again. After that, we can actually call the interaction and reactivate it, which is actually by running this function activate interaction. Also, actually this is not the front interaction, this is the back interaction, sorry. We're gonna do that twice, so I'm gonna make space for this. I'm actually gonna take that, duplicate it here, and replace that with the front interaction. So this way, we're gonna actually activate the front interaction after we close the door again. Now, if this interaction is cancelled by any means, we're gonna do a delay and activate interaction. This is happening because we're not choosing this method of reactivation. I'm gonna use that cancelled again. Do a copy here and put that back interaction here. Right. Great. So now that my door is ready, So now I'm going to place my door in the level. And the only thing that is missing is main components, which is Explority Manager. You need to drag that in the world. And you need Interaction Manager and drag it into the world or your level. And then we're ready to go. Let's just start testing that. If we go to the other side, it's gonna do like that. So now we can play with this by going to the interactions again and making it a tap. Instead of a tap, changing both to a hold. Now if we play from here, we can hold for 2 seconds and the door is gonna open and it's gonna close.